Here's the true test. Does it taste like my mom's? Where do I start? It's gigantic. As far back as I can remember, my mom made the best cinnamon rolls, yeast rise cinnamon rolls. But I'm seeing a lot of YouTube videos saying that you can make cinnamon rolls without yeast. I'm like, what? No yeast? So you know what? I'm going to take on that challenge. I'm not a big cinnamon roll maker. I love to eat them, but I can't say I've ever made them except helping my mom. So let's go in and see if this is true. Let's get going and see if I can make cinnamon rolls that are really tasty without yeast. I'm going to call my no yeast cinnamon rolls, you know those jumbo make one cinnamon rolls, triple cinnamon rolls, because I'm going to put cinnamon in there 3 times. And I'm making a double batch because if it is really good, my husband's going to want his own and I'm going to want my own. So I'm not just making 1 jumbo cinnamon roll. I'm going to make 2 and I'm going to add more ingredients. So I'm putting my own spin on this. My mom used to put raisins and walnuts. Well, I don't have any walnuts, but I do have pecans. So keep watching here because we're going to make a jumbo cinnamon roll with raisins and pecans and triple cinnamon. I think it's going to make a mess. If I recall, when she would make hundreds and hundreds of cinnamon rolls, it made a mess. I remember those days. That's probably why I've never made them. But I'm going to make these. So let's get started. Let's make the cinnamon filling. And I have the recipe here for you for 1 cinnamon roll versus 2. And as you know, I'm making a 2 roll recipe. I'm just using a small bowl, and because my butter hasn't been sitting out for very long, it's not as soft as what I would like, and so I'm going to microwave it just for 15 to 20 seconds to soften it. Then add a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, 3/4 a cup of light brown sugar, and gently break up the brown sugar and just mix everything up. Stir well. And we want this to firm up a little bit, so put it in the refrigerator for 10 to 15 minutes while you're mixing up the dough. Let's start with the wet ingredients for the dough, and again I'm using the 2 roll recipe. In a small bowl, I'm adding 2/3 cup of sour cream, 2 large eggs, and 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Whisk everything up until well blended. Set that aside and let's mix up the dry ingredients for the dough. You'll need a large bowl, and we're going to start with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Add 4 tablespoons of white sugar and 3 teaspoons of baking powder. Again, I'm doing the 2 roll recipe. Add 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Stir the dry ingredients until well blended. Next, we're going to add 1 stick plus 2 tablespoons of softened butter, not melted this time, just soft. You'll need either a pastry blender or a large fork to blend the butter into the flour and break it up until it's coarse and crumbly. This might take several minutes to do, and you'll have to scrape off your utensils several times while you do this. Now we're going to add some of the wet ingredients, just a little bit at a time, and stir that in well. Use whatever tool or utensil that makes it easiest for you to mix the liquid ingredients with the dry. And keep adding just a little more, little at a time, and keep blending it in as we form the dough. Again, you'll have to scrape off your utensils because that dough is sticky and it's going to accumulate on your spoon or spatula, and you'll need to scrape it off and keep going. Stir well until you feel like you have a nice consistency on the dough, that it's, come together. You probably won't use all of the wet ingredients that you made up, so you may be putting some aside and discarding. I'm going to use my family heirloom pastry board. You can work directly on your countertop if you'd like, but I just want to show you here, this is something that's been passed on down through the years. My grandmother started using it in 1923. My mom dedicated it to me in 1978, and I've had it now, this is 2020, I've had it for several years now. The first thing you want to do is flour your surface, your working surface. Using a spatula, put all of your dough onto the floured surface. But since I'm making 2 giant cinnamon rolls, I'm going to cut my dough in half. Fold the dough over a few times, patting some flour on as you need to if it's too sticky. And then we're going to dust our rolling pin with a little bit of flour. We're trying to keep things from sticking. And then let's start rolling out the dough. And you're going to roll a very long, narrow rectangle, about 5 or 6 inches wide and possibly about 2 feet long. Just try to roll it out evenly. And you can use your hands to form the shape of the rectangle. Let's get our pans ready. I'm planning on using a 6-inch small cake pan. You can use any kind of pie pan, but I'm working with a 6-inch, and I'm putting some butter in it using the butter wrapper to grease the bottom of the pan. I'm just taking a minute here to preheat my oven to 400 degrees, and it's time to get the cinnamon spread out of the refrigerator. Now, if it's set up too much, you can always microwave it for 10 to 15 seconds. You want it to be a spreadable consistency. Stir it up until it looks good, till you think it's going to be spreadable. And then just start dabbing it on. Now remember, we're making 2 cinnamon rolls, so you only want to use half of this mixture. So do be careful of that. Don't put it all on. Just use half of it and just put dabs of it here and there, and then we'll spread it out. I think this is a great way to do it. My mom used to butter the dough, then she would sprinkle cinnamon, then she'd sprinkle brown sugar, and I really like this shortcut method. I'm adding raisins to my jumbo cinnamon rolls, my triple cinnamon rolls, and I'm using some dark raisins. You can use any kind that you would like, the dark or the golden. Obviously, I'm being very generous with the raisins. Love them. I so wish that I'd had chopped walnuts, but I didn't have any. I only had pecans. Either will work, or you can skip the nuts altogether. And next you'll start rolling it from one end to the other. I used my little scraper tool to help me because the dough was still a little sticky on my board. If you have one of these, you can pick these up at the Dollar Tree, but they're a great little tool. And I have a little dilemma here. This cinnamon roll is too long, making it too tall. When I turn it upright, it looks more like a croissant. I've definitely done something wrong, so I'm going to have to think about this and go to plan B. Let's see, what is plan B? Just stay with me here. I'll figure something out. I decided to turn this into 2 medium-sized jumbo cinnamon rolls, if that makes any sense. I happen to have some small springform pans, where the bottom releases. And so I grabbed a couple of those, again, buttered the bottom and the sides, and I'm going to turn this into 2 cinnamon rolls. If you don't have these little pans, just use a pie plate and just put both of them in the same plate. That would be fine. I'm doing this recipe for the first time, so like you're watching it right now, I'm learning as I go. This is real life and sharing with you my experience in making these cinnamon rolls. Without yeast. That's the key. No yeast. My dough was still pretty tacky, so I did add a little more flour to make it more pliable. So now my surface is floured, and I think I'm ready to work on the second cinnamon roll. We're going to repeat the process, sort of. This time I'm going to try to actually get my jumbo cinnamon roll. Again, pat a little flour as you need to. As I say need to, go ahead and knead the dough a little bit. Flour your rolling pin, and let's get rolling. Just like before, I'm making a long, rectangular shaped dough about 5 or 6 inches wide. Nothing has changed as far as that. And this time I can finish up all the cinnamon butter mixture. I'm going to spread it all onto the dough. Going to add my dark raisins and some more chopped pecans. But this time, plan B, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to fold this lengthwise. I'm going to basically fold it in half lengthwise, as you can see what I'm doing here, using my scraper tool to help me. So I get a shorter cinnamon roll and not the elongated one that turned into two. I'm gonna get it right this time. I'll show you here. Keep watching. So now that I have it completely folded in half, I'm going to start rolling it up from one end to the other. Well, what do you know? This one looks pretty good. This one looks like what I was attempting on the first try. I think we're going to do it this time. I'm putting it in my 6-inch buttered pan and keeping my fingers crossed. What do you think? Thumbs up? Doesn't this one look better? By the way, if you haven't done it, how about subscribing and ring that bell to receive notifications so you'll see all my future recipes. But let's keep rolling. So I preheated my oven to 400 degrees. We're going to put this in, well, we're putting 3 of them in, the 2 medium rolls and this jumbo roll, cinnamon roll. Now, they're probably going to start getting a little too brown as you check on them about 25 minutes in. That's okay. Cover it with some foil, but I don't think you'll need to go over the 35 minutes. In fact, you can probably pull the medium size ones at about 30. I need to clean up my work area, so I just want to show you here. I just grabbed some cheap wax paper, slipped it underneath my pastry board, and using my scraper tool, I'm just scraping the flour right onto the wax paper, and then once my board is good enough, I move it out of my way and just use the scraper tool on my countertop and just trying to gather up that flour and get it up and out of your space before you get it wet from something else, or you could have a sticky mess. While the triple cinnamon rolls are baking in the oven, we're going to mix up some buttercream icing. I'm using the 2-roll recipe on the right-hand side. In a medium-sized bowl, I have 2 tablespoons of softened or room temperature butter, and then I add a half a cup of powdered sugar, also known as confectioner's sugar. Next, add a half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Add 2 tablespoons of milk. I'm using whole milk, but you can use other types of milk. And I'm using my blender, but you could whisk this. It will get thicker as you go, but stir it up fairly well. You can add more powdered sugar if you need to. And then I realized I wanted to add a pinch of salt, and I also wanted to add that 3rd layer of cinnamon. Instead of measuring the cinnamon, I just decided to put a sprinkle of it in my icing. Again, using your blender or a whisk, just mix it all up until it's blended well and there's no powdered sugar in the rim of the bowl. Just try to blend it well. And here's a little tip for you. In the electrical department of my local hardware store, I picked up these twist ties. They're actually, like I said, in the electrical department, and I use them all the time in the kitchen. Time for the big reveal. Let's see what's underneath the foil. All right, they look good, just a little bit browned on top. I was glad that I covered them with foil. Let's check out the real jumbo cinnamon roll. It's still in the oven. Oh, looks good to me. Let's get this out of the oven and get it cooling down a little bit. So there you go. I got my medium triple cinnamon roll, my jumbo cinnamon roll. This really is a huge cinnamon roll. My cinnamon rolls are done. It's time to get them icinged. It's still a little bit warm, but isn't it gorgeous? Wow. My idea of making 2 jumbos, I got 2 minis. Wow, how about 2 mini jumbos and the big one? So let's get some icing on these and see how they taste. Will they taste like Mom's? I don't know. Let's get some icing on here. Time to get them icinged. As I said, these are springform pans, so I'm going to undo the little latch and pop them out and take the bottom off. Actually, these little pans worked out great for this. I wish I had a 6-inch springform pan, but you'll see here, it's not too hard to get the larger one out of the pan. All I had to do is run my knife around the edge, and honestly, it came out fine. Again, I buttered the inside of the pan. Here comes my favorite part. Let's get this buttercream icing on these cinnamon rolls. I love buttercream icing. My mom has made thousands and thousands of cinnamon rolls, but she's never made a jumbo cinnamon roll. I wish she could see this. I told her about it, but she didn't get to see it. Maybe she'll get to see my video someday. Let's get the smaller ones icing. Now tell me, have you ever seen cinnamon rolls this big? And don't they just look delicious? Let me give them a taste. Let's find out. Wow. They look good. They smell good. Let's taste it. All right, here's the true test. Does it taste like my mom's? I don't know. Where do I start? It's gigantic. Really good flavor. The sour cream made them moist, but still a little more cake-like. I'm glad I put the raisins and the pecans and all those layers of cinnamon, the triple cinnamon. That's really good. So no, it doesn't taste like my mom's yeast cinnamon rolls, but I have to tell you, they're really good. Now, were they worth the mess? Keep watching. I'm going to show you the mess. But they're really good. I would love to have them again. If somebody else makes them. Keep watching. I am going to show you the mess. So here's the behind the scenes look at my kitchen, my countertop, my mess. And let's take a look in the sink too. And you know what? I'm not even showing you the baking pans I need to wash. I hope you enjoyed this video on how to make a no yeast triple cinnamon roll. I hope you give it a try. Give me a thumbs up. Like, subscribe, and ring that bell to receive notifications on future videos. As always, thanks for watching. I'm Vicki with Thrifty Recipes. Now, I joked with someone recently that these were like Hardee's cinnamon biscuits on steroids, but I have to tell you, they're even better.